Namaste, loves, and welcome back to our Monday interview show. I am so excited for our very special guest here today, Alberto Villoldo, who is an amazing author. He's the founder of the Four Winds. He's a medical anthropologist. I met Alberto in person a few weeks ago at the Hay House conference, and it was magical. I just wanted to squeeze out every bit of wisdom that I had in person with this amazing human, this amazing teacher. And I'm so excited to share some of his amazing wisdom with you here today. We will link in the show notes to some of Alberto's books because he has written many amazing books. He also has a new vegan cookbook out, which we will talk about today. Alberto, thank you so much for being here with us today. We are very excited.
Kimberly, it's a pleasure to be with you and great to meet you too at the Hay House conference.
I had this incredible experience. We were walking to dinner, Alberto, and I told you this, we were speaking, and it was like everything dropped away and we were talking, and there was just this amazing presence. There's this amazing energy. I'm sure a lot of people tell you this, and it was just felt really potent.
It was a powerful encounter. You know, these sacred encounters that happen when you are serving a common mission of bringing a little bit more beauty and joy to the earth. We get these gifts from the Great Mother, from Mother Earth, to encounter souls that are walking a parallel path. And it was such a treat to meet you like that.
Mm. And Alberto, I love how you're talking about so many different topics around wellness and energy. And now you're talking about food and you talk about destiny. And I was just preparing my notes and I said, wow, there's so many different things that I want to ask Alberto in your vast experience. So first of all, wow, I love that you've written books about so many different topics. But the first thing, and I saw this very new to, or for me it was new hearing about this idea of the four-chambered soul, and that really spoke to me right away, Alberto, because you and I talked about shadow work. We talked about these wounds that we have, which can be in this lifetime or previous lifetimes, and how that keeps us from fulfilling our destiny. Can we get
Yep.
into that first a little bit?
Absolutely. You know, the mythologist Joseph Campbell, wonderful mythologist, really, he used to say that if you don't learn it, you end up marrying it. And
Mm.
so that you keep bumping into your shadow, you keep bumping into the unhealed parts of yourself and projecting it out into the world and trying to fix it through the world when we really had to fix it inside. Now, I spend, I started my work in a brain research lab at San Francisco State and then went to the Amazon for many years to work with the shamans and became what I call a neuro shaman, which is what I believe we all are
Mm.
because we're looking for the magical and the sacred, but not as an escapist route, but to really do the core work of deep healing. And that has to do with coming back into your destiny so that you're not in the grip of fate, because fate is fatal, and when you're not engaging your life calling, then you're at the mercy of your genetics, which are not good in general, or your family drama.
Mm.
And when you can break out of that into your calling and into your destiny, amazing healing happens. And then you can craft your own journey. You're not a victim of the genes that run in your family or the dementia or
Mm.
the heart disease. You write your own story.
Alberto, there's our ancestors, right? In this lifetime, we can trace that lineage. And then, as you've talked about in your work, there's previous lifetimes, right? That are pulling from different lineages. So we are this combination, this unique combination as we come in with all these different influences. So do you believe here now we can heal this ancestral line and we can go even further back?
Absolutely. So you're talking about karma. you know the and we reincarnate, we come back lifetime after lifetime, and the shamans of old in every culture recognize that. But even in this life, we've had a number of lifetimes, maybe
Yes.
sometimes a number of relationships or marriages, or so we want to be sure we don't drag that old karma along with us from this life, so that we can shed those stories the way the serpent sheds her skin. But to do that, what I learned in the brain laboratory is that we have a very ancient brain that needs ceremony, ritual, in order to change. That you cannot change your
Mm.
mind unless you change your brain. And you cannot change this old brain that lives in fear and in scarcity and in judgment and in projection of the shadow. You cannot change it unless you do ceremony, sacred ceremony, which is why you have it in every culture. But ceremony doesn't have to be complicated ritual. It's just a sacred moment. And
Mm.
one of the most ancient ones, maybe I can share that with you now, is a fire ceremony, because we sat
Yes.
around the fire for a million years before, until 100 years ago, the world was lit only by fire. We sat around the fire, we told stories, we made love, we helped the dying and the babies be born. And today we're trying to change, but we don't know how to change that ancient brain because we have lost the sacred ceremony. We need to create them. And the fire ceremony is one of the most powerful, the most ancient one. And let me share that with you right now. I've got a little stick in
Yes.
my hand, and I'm going to blow into the stick. The shamans call it a death arrow. I'm going to blow it into it, whatever I'm bumping into, whatever obstacles I'm running into in my life. Or maybe it's a diagnosis. A diagnosis is kind of a modern curse, because then you become a
Mm.
statistic. So you're not a
Yes.
diagnosis. Or whatever self-judgment you have. And then I'm going to put it to the fire. I've got a candle here that we cannot see. I'm going to put it to the fire. And I'm going to release the energy that I have bound around that story, or that
Mm.
diagnosis, or that self-judgment. And then place it safely in water. And this gives that ancient brain permission to change. And if you don't create some kind of sacred ceremony,
Mm.
then we're going to be stuck. We're going to be bumping into the blocks. We're going to be waking up into what we're not able to deal with. So I want to invite all of us that are watching or listening to really craft your own ceremony with your beloved, with yourself,
Mm.
with the fire, with the elements, with water, with and use this one if you like. It's very powerful and it works.
Wow. Alberto, thank you for making that so accessible, because sometimes when we hear ceremony, we think, oh, I have to go to the Amazon. I have to carve out 3 weeks of my year, spend thousands of dollars, and it's really hard to do. And I'm a busy mom, and right, all the obstacles start to come in. But what you taught us just there, bringing that element, it's transformational right here, right now.
Right here, right now. Many people go to the
Oof.
Amazon, spend 3 weeks, spend thousands of dollars, and have ayahuasca and have dinner with God. And by Tuesday, they forgot everything that they talked about, and they bring nothing back. So, yeah, create your own ceremony. So, and it can be simply, when we clink glasses with someone and have a toast, that's a little sacred moment that you're creating. But to heal and to heal trauma, we need to give the brain permission to heal, to let it know that it's safe.
Mm.
And because if it's not safe, we're not going to heal. In fact, there's a story that the Hopi have, the Hopi nation in North America. They say that before we're born, we have a twin, that we have an astral twin that
Mm.
looks out of the birth canal to see if it's safe to be born, if the family is safe, if the space is safe. And if it's safe, it says, come on, let's go. And both of them are born together. They're the masculine and feminine sides of ourselves. And if it's not safe, part of us holds back. And we're born with what we call soul loss, with trauma, with traumatic birth. Trauma is really the loss of the healed part of your soul. And the part that remains behind is the wounded part. That's why shamans have a strategy healing technique called soul retrieval, where you can
Mm.
recover that healed part, but you got it. let it know that it's going to be safe, that you're going to receive its gifts, that you're not just going to put it on your to-do list. Your soul part might say, why should I come back? I mean, look at your life. You don't have time for anything fun, and you want to have more fun. So you have to coax this soul part that left. And people that suffer trauma in wartime, or a woman that's been sexually abused, or will frequently report observing the scene as if from the corner of the room, as if from above. And that's,
Mm,
in psychology, they call that disassociation. And in the shamans that I had the opportunity to work with in the Amazon said, no, that's the soul fragmenting. And we need to
mm,
become whole again, make the soul whole again, so we can step back into our destiny. Because when your soul is fragmented, then you're in the grip of fate. Then your future has been preordained by your genetics, or by your family of origin, or by your skin color or your gender. Or whereas when you become whole, when you recover that soul part that has fled, and today many of us are suffering from it because we were born into families that were not safe.
yes. It's not safe, not awake, not honoring the wholeness.
Totally. And this happens at the moment of conception. I'll tell you my moment of conception, which is not only where your genetics come together, you get 23 from mom, 23 from dad. And that's why I love the name of this company, 23andMe, for your genetic analysis. 23 for me is the moment of your conception. That's when the die is cast energetically for the rest of your life. The moment of my conception, my mother did not have much experience, and my dad had had a little bit too much whiskey. So in this moment of terror and whiskey, bam, my genetic destiny was selected. So we have to make sure that we practice epigenetics greater than genetics, so that we're not a victim not only of the information in the genes, but of the emotional charge that got infused into that DNA the moment that we were conceived.
Mm, mm. Alberto, can I ask you a question? This is such a fascinating topic. I want to take some in your ancient wisdom and all this vast knowledge for a very modern issue, which is present. It's present in our community. We get a lot of questions around this, and it has to do with infertility, because we're in an age right now, Alberto, where there are so many women and couples struggling to get pregnant for the first time. Doctors are saying, oh, there's toxins in the water or the food supply. There's all these unexplained reasons why people aren't able to get pregnant. People are getting more desperate to get pregnant. They're trying assisted reproductive technologies. There's all the stats, like you said, when you were lighting the candle. If you're over 34, over 35, it's going to be really hard for you. And yet, I think about my grandmother who had babies in the Philippines till she was 48, and this ability to carry life and reproduce as part of nature. What would you say, or what would you teach or recommend anyone in our community that knows someone or is personally struggling with infertility?
It's such a big topic right now.
Yeah.
Let me give you a little bit of the science behind it. So in the last 20 years, men have lost 50% of their sperm count.
Yeah.
And their motility, the ability of the sperm to swim powerfully, is reduced tremendously. They say by 2060, in 35 years, that 2 out of 3 men will be infertile, unable to
Oh my
reproduce.
gosh. 2 out of 3?
So, and this is the science, and it's because the sperm is very vulnerable to toxins, to heavy metals, to toxins in the water. But that's the science side, and science is materialistic. It's missing the whole spiritual side. We have one of our students who had in vitro fertilization. Her best friend had 26 tries, and
Oh,
the fetus was rejected. But she got it right at the first time because she called on that spirit to come. she called on that little spirit that was right to be born through her to come. And the very first try of in vitro was successful. Now, the second time she did the in vitro, she had two spirits show up in her meditations, and she communed with them, and she had twins.
Wow.
So you've got to attend to the invisible world, not only to the genetics and not only to the technology, and look at the environment that this is happening in. I mean, you go to an in vitro fertilization clinic and there's fluorescent lights. It's like what happened with when I was conceived. Too much whiskey and
Yeah.
sheer terror. That's not a loving environment for a spirit to connect um, with biology.
Yes.
So this is so important that you prepare yourself emotionally and spiritually and commune with that being that is wanting
Mm.
to be born through you.
Connect and feel them, and again, see this more holistically than people are like, I'm over 30 now. People are doing IVF in their 20s even, Alberto,
Yeah,
and just
totally.
yeah.
You know, when I was a boy, like many of us, we had our eyes open and we could see the energy world, and I could see spirits. I could see dead people. My parents were terrified of it because I say, "Oh, there's Uncle Milton. He's come back for his wife, and the wife would die 2 days later." So they told me to shut up and never ever say that again. But you can also see the little spirits that are wanting to be born, and you can
Wow.
summon them. You can call that spirit that has a dharmic, not a karmic, but a beautiful, positive relationship with you, and connect with it energetically, spiritually, and invite it to come through you. We need to create ceremony around this whole mechanical, technical IVF procedure. But even if you're not going the IVF route, if you're doing the traditional form of conception, you got to create a sacred ceremony around your lovemaking,
Yes.
because it's not no longer about you and about him, but it's about there's three people involved here now. That little spirit that's going to be coming through, and we have forgotten, of course, how important that is.
Well, Alberto, with our child, with my husband, we actually had this Ayurvedic mantra that my Ayurvedic doctor gave us, and we would chant it together 3 times. And it was this ceremony, and we called that soul in, and it felt really beautiful.
Absolutely. This is that element of the sacred that is missing
Hmm.
today so much from our lives. In my new book, I just finished a book called The Grow New Body Cookbook, which is the sequel to my Grow New Body book, which is how um, Amazonian peoples, how shamans, indigenous people know how to regenerate the body through a primarily plant-based diet, and how they're
Mm.
plants that regulate your genetic expression. I mean, I have a section in the book on the beverages that are the epigenetic regulators. But today we're so seduced by, we know that the green plants have the micro RNAs that will switch on the genes for health, but we forget that these plants have spirits also.
Mm.
Spirit in the plant. There's the spirit in everything. And if you can work with not only the chemical structure of your broccoli sprouts, which are amazing, as you know from your own work. I mean, I love your work with the plants and the juicing and the. If you can connect with the spirit of the plant, you're not just relying on the chemical.
Yes.
And that's what the healers of old used to do. They would awaken the spirit of the plant before they took it as a medicinal plant. And there you were getting not only the chemical, molecular, but the energetic.
And Alberto, you talked about ceremony. Even in our family, we pause, we say grace, we pray, we say gratitude before we eat. And I feel like in our society today, there's a lot of rush and There isn't a lot of respect for the plants, is there? They're just kind of shoveling it down, or marketing reasons. There's these formulas with like dozens and dozens of plants in them at once, and
Yeah,
just like in
yeah.
minute amounts. It's very commercial.
Yeah, it's become totally commercial. I used to bless my food before eating it. I don't do that anymore. Today I ask my food to bless me before I eat it.
Wow.
Who am I to be blessing this incredible plant? It's bringing me a blessing, and I try to awaken and receive that blessing. And but if I can stay on the subject of plants like curcumin, turmeric, amazing. It's such an amazing herb. And we know that curcumin is the extract from the turmeric root. And we know that in India, where they eat a lot of turmeric, people have only 15% of the Alzheimer's that we do in
Mm,
America. And so we have targeted curcumin, but curcumin works best when you mix it with turmeric, because curcumin is the active molecule, whereas the turmeric is the synergistic spirit of the plant.
mm.
So we have to bring spirit back into not only into our IVF and into our conception and into our healing, but into our communion with the invisible world, where we have our umbilical cord that connects us to the invisible, to Mother Earth, is shriveled up, and she's not able to nurture us energetically the way that she did when we were one with nature.
Yes. And this can be restored in our daily practices, ceremonies,
Totally,
how we're eating,
totally.
bringing this in now.
Yeah, totally. We need to restore that. I remember, yeah, I just came back from, we do an annual expedition to Peru that I lead, to the sacred places in the Andes. And I met with one of the medicine women, and they're seers. They can see the energetic realm. And they were saying to me, Alberto, your energy's so good because you're looking so well. It's like your glass is full. But many of the people that come with you, their energy is, so imagine the body's made out of glass, is all the way down to their feet. And I said, well, what does that mean? I said, well, these are the people that are going to get sick, because if your energy body is full, if you're full of that communion of that earth, of that chi, of that prana, you're not going to get sick. Or if you get sick, you'll be very resilient. But for so many of us in the West, we think we get all of our energy from calories or from food, and we forget, that we live in a universe that's all energy that we can drink from directly.
So, Alberto, I loved your practice with the candle. I love that you have this. What's the name of your new vegan cookbook as well?
It's a vegan cookbook, and I'm not vegan, but I am vegan 1 week a month, and it's called the Grow New Body Cookbook, because you have to become vegan to allow the body to go into regeneration. You have to go plant-based at least 1 week a month, so that, because the body goes from first into detox, got to get rid of the toxins. If you can detox, then it'll go into repair. And if you can sustain the vegan protocol for 4 or 5 days, then you go into regeneration, because the plants have the instructions for helping us grow a new body. So
Yes.
1 week, 10 days a month, all of us should go on particularly the land-based animal foods, including the eggs, the dairy, the meat, at least 1 week a month, to allow the body to regenerate, so you can grow a new body that ages and heals and dies differently.
Alberto, I'm so excited to check out your book and your plants. I personally have been plant-based fully for about 15 years. And I look at some of these pictures in college when I was partying. We say the liver regenerates. I just look at my skin back then, and it really is true that this energy when we're pulling from source and we're not just on this material level and buying into these limited beliefs. This is how old I'm going to look when I'm 30. This is how I'm going to feel when I'm 40, 50, 60. We go into this limitless capacity that is, some people don't understand it, Alberto, as you
Yeah.
know, and some people think, oh, statistics, medicine says this and this, but there's so much more to it, isn't there?
Yep, totally. Yeah, I mean, medicine statistics, that's called the fat part of the bell curve. It's a big bell curve. And the fat part is where the way everybody gets old and dies sick. You live long, but you live sick long. And we want to become an outlier out here where we can make our health span equal to our lifespan. And to do that, we're going to find that in the plants, in the plant based diet, because
Mm.
they contain the instruction. We evolved with the plants, not with the animals. Very seldom would we eat animal foods, but that's another topic.
Yes. Well, so Alberto, taking it back to everyone listening to this who says, well, this sounds great and I want to connect with nature and I love ceremony. I'm really busy, right? So, yes, they're shifting food. We're eating on an everyday basis. But how can someone incorporate some of your practices and your beautiful philosophy saying, like me, I'm a mom with two young kids. I got to do school runs. I'm working. I'm in modern life. How do I actually live this on a daily basis instead of just doing a retreat or once in a while having a
Yeah.
weekend?
Well, once in a while, a weekend is good, and or you can come to the Amazon with me for 2 weeks. But
That'd be a
in,
dream.
but having kids is not a new phenomenon.
Yes,
This has
you
been
work it
happening
in.
for a very long time and working the field and fitting. But the nature that you need to connect with is the invisible world. See, what I learned from the shamans, and I was trained as a neuroscientist, but what I learned from the shamans was that everything is natural. It's a natural world. There's no supernatural world. There's only the natural world that has a visible component and it has an invisible component. It's what we call the quantum field in physics, except it's living, it's alive. How you connect to nature, the most important part is with the invisible part of nature that's all around us all the time. And going for a walk in the woods is fantastic, but if you go for a walk in the woods checking your phone or thinking about your to-do list, you're not connecting to nature.
Right.
So the return to the garden, I call it the return to the garden, the return to Eden, where we could speak with the rivers and with the trees and with God, and the rivers and the trees, and God would talk back to us. That's
Mm,
You can do that from your living room.
mm.
But you need some green. You need some green life, and both in your diet as well as in your environment. And there's a tale, a legend of when the Spanish conquistadors arrived in Peru and they met with the Inca, with the ruler who was a divine ruler. He was a shaman, and they gave the conquistador brought a priest, and they gave the Inca uh, the Bible, and they said, "This is the word of God." And they had never seen a book before because in the Americas there was no writing. But the priest said, "This is the word of God," so that the Inca put it to his ear and listened and listened and didn't hear anything and threw the book down. And he said, "What kind of God is this that does not speak?"
Mm.
And he asked the priest, "When did your God last speak to you?" The priest said, 1,500 years ago. And the priest said to the Inca, "When did your God last speak to you?" And the shaman said, "This morning at breakfast." So
Wow.
they still have an active dialogue with nature, with the
Mm,
rivers, with the trees, with spirit, with God. See, God hasn't stopped speaking to us. We've stopped listening.
mm.
And this is what that reconnection with nature is about.
Well, and having that expanded view, that expanded connection, that spirit is in everything instead of up there in the sky, this, perception or this, being coming down to us rather
Yeah.
than it's flowing through everything.
Well, that's in our in our prayers, our Father who are not here, who are somewhere else. This is why we have so many daddy issues in the West today. It's even embedded in our form of prayer, but it goes back to our diet, because we had a dietary shift that occurred 10,000 years ago where we discovered agriculture. And at the same time that we discovered agriculture, we started no longer eating from the more than 50,000 wild plants available to us. We began eating only 3 of them, which are rice, corn, and wheat, and none of them are green. So when
Yes.
we made that dietary shift, we began to eat bread instead of eating greens and vegetables. And we discovered religion, we discovered agriculture and warfare. We began to fight because the land became valuable suddenly. You were planting your fields, it became valuable, and the farmer became the warrior. So this is a tragic event that occurred, and that at that time, 10,000 years ago, human lifespan was reduced by half, by 50%. Human lifespans went from 65 years to about 32, 33. In Rome, the average Roman lived to be 35 years old, if you were lucky. And that's when we made that dietary shift to eating grains and to eating processed grains that would turn into sugar the minute you ate them. And you even find that embedded, of course, even in our prayers. And give us today our daily bread. The prayer didn't go, give us today our daily greens and fats and proteins. So we've got to get back to natural, and not only to nature, to natural. And it's very affordable. You can do it. You can even plant I plant some of my own vegetables right outside in my little backyard area. You can grow your own sprouts in your kitchen in an apartment on the 37th floor. And you go back to natural, you go back to nature, and you go back to spirit. You make your way back to spirit. And then we become abundant, whether that means fertile and having a child, or whether it means having plenty, having been nourished and nurtured, not only by the calories you eat and by the macronutrients, but by spirit, by the love of the mother, of the great mother.
Alberto, you mentioned fragmentation before, and I think a lot of people don't see how we're eating as connected to this abundance, wholeness, this connection to spirit. And yet we know, as you speak about the shamans and also the yogis, Yogananda and all these great yoga gurus have always talked about how important what we're eating is in terms of our meditation, our spiritual growth, our consciousness levels. So we know that what we're taking into our body is having an energetic effect on our awareness and our aliveness. But it's so missing today, isn't it, Alberto? It's
Oh,
just
it's totally missing. And one of the problems, of course, is we've been taking antibiotics since we were young. If you go to the forest, I remember being in the Amazon, and I asked our guide, where are the animals? They said, the animals are where the food is. In Africa, this generally means around the water holes. So the animals go to where there's food. And it's the same with us. We have an ecosystem where the animals, the good bugs in our gut flora, they go to where the food is. They go to our GI tract, which is where they get fed. We think we eat to feed us, but we eat to feed them. Our intestinal flora, our probiotic colony, so that they can manufacture all of the vitamins and nutrients that we need. There are 10 levels of gut bacteria, and they are responsible for turning broccoli into you or into me. It's a big job. They eat first, and then they manufacture all of the nutrients that we need. And today our colony is so damaged that it doesn't matter how much we eat, it's all passing through us. It's not even, we're not being nourished, not only energetically, we're not being nourished even physically.
Mm,
So it's a critical time. And that's, of course, the cause of so many of dysbiosis and of many of the physical ailments, particularly the autoimmune conditions, where
yes.
your where your immune system thinks that you are a parasite, that you are the enemy, and it begins to attack you. Whoa. You don't find that in any indigenous cultures that I have ever spent time with,
Mm,
in Africa or in Asia or in the Amazon. There are no autoimmune issues.
wow. And they don't have all the fancy biohacking, and they're not taking millions of supplements and
Yeah.
living this, this life with all these different devices. They're living a very simple life connected to nature. It's just this it's like this wow, this moment, this awe that it's like their moment to moment living is a very different experience.
Yeah, in my book and the Grow New Body Cookbook, I write that you need to turn your kitchen into your laboratory, and you need to become your own chief scientist, because we can't trust the science out there anyway.
Mm,
The editor of the Journal of the American Medical Association and the Lancet, which is the British Medical Association, they wrote a joint paper editorial saying that they know that 50% of the medical research papers they publish are bogus. They're bad. They just don't know which 50%.
oh
So
my
even our
gosh.
medical science is broken. We cannot tell what's true and what's misinformation anymore. And so you need to become your own chief scientist, do your own research, turn your kitchen into your laboratory, and take part in what I call the experiment of n is equal to 1. Because in science, when you do an experiment, in medicine, you want n, the number of people in your study, to be a lot, so that you can say that it's relevant to many people. But today we do the experiment of n is equal to 1, and my experiment is called Alberto,
Mm, I
and yours
love
is called Kimberly.
I
And
love
if you
it.
don't do the experiment to create health, guess what? If you don't take part in the experiment, you get to be in the control group. And the control group is that big fat part of the bell curve of how people live and get sick and get old and die in America.
Mm,
So today we have to do that. We have to take charge of our health and of our destinies. And we have so much support available to us, but we got to do our own research and be careful who you trust and what you trust. We have become overly biohacked. We become actually. I want to start the unhacking movement, because we've been hacked.
I love
We've been
that.
hacked by our digital devices. We've been hacked by even the supplement companies that tell us we need to be taking all of these different supplements to be. We've been hacked. We need to unhack ourselves.
I love that, Alberto, and I totally relate to that. And I also will say that for me, as I grew in my wellness journey, which for me the pathway in was nutrition and eating good food and getting my microbiome back into balance, and it really did parallel the spiritual path for me. And at different stages, I just started having more awareness. I could see myself more. I could see my patterns, and so it was almost like I was upgrading my body, and then I was able to introspect more and reflect. So, how would you like, what are some practices or some ways that you would encourage or teach some of our listeners that are starting to see things, or like you and I talk a lot about shadow work and we
Yeah.
want to get rid of patterns, right? So then we start to upgrade the structure and then we're able to maybe have more strength and resilience to shift.
Yeah. First, I think we have to practice slow food, slow eating. Eat your food, enjoy it. I don't need, uh, I eat one meal a day now, and because it has all the nutrients I need, but I try to get a lot of my food through my breath.
Mm,
So every breath you take, you're not just getting oxygen that's going into your mitochondria and helping you produce energy, you're taking in chi and life force. So if you breathe in consciously, you're actually feeding every cell in your body. And there are people in India that are breatharians.
Yeah.
I'm not quite there yet. I eat a really hearty, good meal, and so that's the beginning. And then eat consciously. Be aware that you're not taking food into your mouth. You're not taking uh, protein into your mouth. You're taking a piece of salmon, of a living being, of a spirit of a salmon that you may be taking into you, or of a plant that grew in the wild. Like I love blueberries, but I only want buy the wild blueberries because they had to really struggle for their lives. They're not as sweet, but they're full of life force. So today we have been breeding plants for taste, for sugar, for sweetness, and not for nutrient. So you've got to go back to the wild side, to rewild your diet, to rewild your spirit. We become far too domesticated. We become domesticated animals. It's
Mm.
terrible. And how do you rewild yourself? And because we have a wild nature that that doesn't like to be domesticated. And how do you rewild your spirit? Set your spirit free, soar, dare to dream outrageously and courageously, and pick a pick a mission for your life that you can serve. We're all looking for purpose and meaning, but we cannot find meaning until we find a mission
Mm.
that we can become aligned with. And the and then at that point you find that the universe will begin to conspire on your behalf.
And
Your
get really
energy
clear.
level. Hmm?
Yes. Get really clear about that mission.
Totally. Like I really get your mission. You're helping people get uh, get well, get healthy, be conscious about what they eat, what they think, what they feel, how they heal. We can take that. Each one of us can take that mission on. But then we go, well, who am I to take that on? I'm nothing. I'm a victim. Then you remain in the victim mode. Whereas if you take a mission on, maybe it's to bring a little more beauty to the world. Then you become a hero. Go on the hero's journey and not in the victim's journey. And then you don't have a whole list of reasons why you can't do what you want. You can
Hmm.
get what you want, or you can get the reasons why you can't. So then it doesn't matter that you have two kids and you got to drive them to school and you've got to do your work and those don't become obstacles. They become the elements that temper your soul so that you don't have excuses for not living the kind of life you want to be living. You may have reasons why it's hard, but not excuses.
Hmm. Well, I really like, Alberto, how we started off doing that really simple fire practice, because I think it's easy to trudge through life in a similar pattern. I'm going to the school run, I'm going to the grocery store, but that felt like me to a break. Like, oh wow, something different is really happening here, and I'm lighting this
Yeah.
and I'm putting intention in it. And I go to this, we're part of the time in Hawaii, Alberto, and there's this amazing Hindu monastery near our home. And they have this big urn outside, and they teach this practice where you write on a piece of paper something that you want to release. And in their practice, you light it and you watch it burn, right? To say, like,
Precise.
this is
Yeah.
taking away. And every time I do it, I do feel lighter, right? So these rituals that you're teaching, Alberto, for me, it's like, whoa, like momentary wake up calls. Is there
Yeah.
one with water too? I mean, I see you reaching for the fire. I love all the fire. Is there one, you mentioned water, when we're walking
There-
with elements, that we could do on an everyday basis?
Let me go back to the fire first.
Yes.
And of course, you light, and then you can, if you have a big enough stick, you can clear that chakra with the fire, the heart chakra, the heart center.
Do you say something into the fire first, or you're
Yeah,
just
you place whatever you want to release and let go, and then you clear the heart center, release it to the water, and then you pass your hands through the fire, through the flames, and you bring that energy that's been set free, you bring it into your heart center. And from your heart, it goes to whatever part of your energy body that it needs to go to. So you're taking back the energy that's been set free. Let go of the
Mm.
story, let go of the trauma, let go of the block, and take that pure energy back into you. So you want a water ritual. Okay. The
I want
water
a water
ritual.
ritual. Well, Bertie, you're talking about the heart. And I just, my next two books are about the heart, a children's book and an adult book. And I've been working with the heart energy so much. I think there's so much there. Like you said, it flows and we can connect to this
Totally.
potency right here.
The heart is the drummer. It's a great drummer of the body. It sets the whole
Yes.
rhythm to the entire energy system. It's the
Yes.
heart rhythm. And that's why the quieting of the heart through the breath resets your system and your rhythm. But yeah, I'll share with you a water practice. So I'm just working on a course right now on dreaming, on the art of dreaming, on dream yoga. It's kind of a dream yoga. And it's waking up inside the dream, becoming lucid inside your dreams. So the way that you do that is you take a small glass of water with maybe an inch of water in it, and you hold it, and before you fall asleep in bed, you hold the glass and you say, I'm going to drink half of this glass now, just a small amount, so you don't have to get up during the night. And then when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to drink the other half, and all my dreams will come back to me.
Wow.
And then first thing you do in the morning is you reach for your glass and you drink the other half, and then go back to curl up with the pillow again for a few minutes, and your dreams will come back to you. After 3 or 4
Wow.
days, you'll begin to come back. After a week, after 2 weeks, you remember 4 or 5 dreams that you had in the night. And then after you've begun to remember them, the next step is the same practice. When I wake up, I'm going to take the other half a glass, and then you drink half, and then you look for the glass in your dream, and you drink the other half of the glass inside a dream. So you wake up inside the dream, you become lucid.
Wow. And do you believe, Alberto, that it's really there's much value in remembering our dreams and going into them? Because some people say, oh, they're just random
Yeah,
things that
I know.
pass through.
This is what psychology did. Psychology eviscerated us. They denied the dream time. They said, "Oh, it's only symbols of your
Yeah.
individuation or what's going on in your life and your processing." Neurologists say this is how you store memories. Shamans say this is how we participate in the invisible realm. There's the personal dream and the transpersonal. But the third part of the practice of the glass of water is that the second part is you find it in your dream and you drink it and you wake up in the dream and you realize you're dreaming and you can guide it anywhere you want. But the third part is that whenever you're having a lunch with someone or you're going out to lunch in particularly and you reach for your glass of water, as you drink it, you want to wake up in this dream
Mm.
and become lucid and understand that this is also a dream, that what you call reality is a result of your projections, of your shadow, of your unhealed parts and of the parts you don't recognize as you. And that you can become lucid inside this dream that we call reality and navigate through it elegantly to, as long as you are using that power to create beauty and healing for the world, for others, and not only for yourself. You cannot use that power only for personal gain, but for the greater good. The Bodhisattva path, the Buddhists call it. But this is waking up in the dream to dream a new world into being that's a little bit more beautiful and a little bit more healed and a little bit more sane than the world that we seem to be waking up into every day today.
Alberto, that's amazing. When you start waking up and expanding out right into this more oneness field and you're for the greater good, instead of projecting your unhealed shadows out, this is where we start to see perhaps more synchronicities or more miracles happening because we're not in that personal, the original wound or coming from that victimhood, that limited perspective, kind of dissolved more of this little me.
Precisely. Your life becomes a combination of synchronicity and serendipity. Coincidences don't become occasional, they happen all the time now. And
Yes.
then you enter into the non-causal, the non-linear, the magical world, the synchronistic world, and which is the true nature of reality that we wake up into once we understand what, and we go through our own healing process. So that I don't have to project, I don't have to go, wow, Kimberly is so cool. She's so wise, she's so smart, and she has raising kids and has a best-selling art. Great. Well, that is all true. And that's also, we own that projection so that each one of us can find that greatness that we project onto the other, we find it within us. And we don't have to project our potential or even our unhealed parts into another. We can own it, claim it, learn the lessons, and step into it, into our
Mhm.
own greatness and path of beauty.
Alberto, I find exactly what you're saying when I don't think about myself so much, right? Because it's easy to compare, be like, I'm here, this person's so much bigger, like this or that, more degrees, whatever it is, how we see the world. When I just focus on sharing and wanting to help the whole, I feel like everything just works out better and I feel better. It's like the mission gets bigger and then you kind of I find healing in that because I'm not focused on those little shadows. The shadows don't come up as much anyway, right? Because I'm more broad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. This is, you recognize your own healing path, and so you don't have to continue fighting with your demons. You can start feeding them and befriending them and turning them into allies. But this is why we're in Earth School. This is Earth School. This is why we're in a body. We're here to learn, to serve, bring a little more beauty, and to grow, to really become fully human, maybe for the first time. And it's happening during an incredible time in history in which we're living in the middle of an extinction event. It's the sixth great extinction event since the dawn of life on the planet. The previous extinction event was 65 million years ago when a meteorite struck the Earth and wiped out all the dinosaurs and all the big life forms. The extinction event we're living in started 20 years ago. There are more species dying in the world today, becoming
Yeah.
extinct, than in any other time in history. But when that happens, Mother Nature takes her foot off of the evolutionary brake and steps on the accelerator. And what happens is that in ordinary times, evolution is in between generations. Our children are smarter or better looking. And during extinction events, evolution follows the laws of quantum physics, not Newtonian physics, quantum leaps. Biologists call it quantum speciation, where we evolve within generations. You and I, all of us in this room, have the opportunity to become a new human that the indigenous prophecies around the world have been
Mm.
speaking about for centuries. We have the opportunity to become what I call Homo luminous, not Homo sapiens.
Mm.
Luminous beings, luminous humans, generous humans, heart-driven humans, and not greedy, territorial, heady thinking humans only that are becoming extinct. So take this opportunity for the quantum leap today. It's happening today. We can be part of that experiment.
I love it. Well, Alberto, exactly what you're talking about, these quantum leaps in healing and healing trauma. Sometimes it feels so dense, like I'm trudging through years and years of talk therapy. I'm trying to work out this one issue. But for me, when I, started going into the power of the heart and expanding out, there's like these clearings were happening spontaneously, right? It's nonlinear.
It's amazing. And do the fire ceremony. We need to give the brain
Yes.
permission to change. Otherwise, it won't change. It'll give you the sense of, wow, I had this great breakthrough, but you'll be back stuck. Do the fire ceremony. Do connect with your indigenous self. Awaken that inner shaman within you.
I could speak to you forever, Alberto. Two more quick questions. With fire ceremony, a lot of people like to work with sage, right? These plants can burn through different energies if they're used with intention.
Yeah, sage is wonderful for smudging, for cleansing, for clearing. For this, I like to use like a little hibachi stick that can burn a little bit longer. And if I'm
Got it.
careful, I'll go over my heart center counterclockwise to draw out any sludge or any heavy energy in the heart. The heart is the master chakra.
Mm,
And then I'll take the energy of the fire into me. So, and it doesn't have to be a fire ceremony. It's just that we sat around the fire for a million years, so it's almost in our DNA to associate fire with. If you go for a romantic dinner, you want to light a candle.
yeah,
So you do so. Use this knowledge that we have of our time with our brotherhood, sisterhood with the fire.
beautiful. I mean, there's so much. You've covered so many things. And in your books and in your teachings, you talk about spirit animals, you talk about connecting with different energies, plants, your new vegan cookbook, which we'll link to directly in our show notes. I mean, there's so much magic and beauty in everything. And you've connected in such a deep way, Alberto. I truly love your teaching so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. You know what I do today is I have a school. We train modern shamans and shamans that know the visible and the invisible world, that can dance on top of that equal sign of Einstein's famous formula, E equals mc squared. The world of energy, the world of matter. And today we have the opportunity to really bring modern brain science together with ancient wisdom traditions. And that's my mission.
Mm, so amazing. Alberto, tell us where we can find out more about your work and your amazing
Well,
books.
you can visit my website, the4winds.com, the4winds.com, and take a look at my new cookbook, Grow New Body Cookbook. It has all the science and 100 wonderful vegan recipes. But most important, I want to invite you to take part in that experiment of n is equal to 1. Turn your kitchen into your laboratory. Become your own chief scientist, your own chief shaman.
I love it. And that's so accessible. We all have kitchens. We all need to eat. We all need to cook. So why not make it a magical, completely nourishing experience?
Totally.
Thank you so much, Alberto.
Thank you, Kimberly. A pleasure to be with you. Blessings, blessings all. See you around the fire.
See you around the fire. Thank you again, Alberto. Thank you all for tuning in. We will link directly to Alberto's amazing work, directly to his website, directly to his new book and our show notes, which will be at mysaluna.com. And we'll be back here Thursday, as always, for our next Q&A show. So till then, take great care of yourself. Sending you so much love and blessings. Namaste.